The classification controversy. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Academy of Nanosciences fell silent as Dr. Saren Vex approached the podium. Her iridescent scales caught the light from the hovering illumination orbs, casting subtle rainbow patterns across the polished stone floor. The 7 senior council members watched impassively from their elevated platform, their expressions unreadable behind their environmental masks. Distinguished Council, Saren began, her translator converting her native clicks and whistles into the standard galactic tongue. I stand before you to challenge the Academy's classification of Sol 3, locally known as Earth, as a Class 5 Deathworld. Murmurs rippled through the audience of scholars and researchers. Class 5 was the highest danger rating in the galactic classification system, reserved for planets so lethal that they were subject to quarantine protocols. Senior Counselor Joel raised a tentacle for silence. Dr. Vex, this classification has stood for over 300 cycles. The evidence is well documented. Saren activated her data projector. A holographic image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly above the chamber floor. With respect, Counselor, that evidence is based entirely on remote observations and automated probe data. Not a single xenobiologist has conducted field research on the planet's surface. For good reason, interrupted Counselor Mrath, her crystalline form glinting with agitation. Sol 3's gravity is 2.7 times that of our homeworld. Its atmosphere contains corrosive oxygen at levels toxic to most species. Its temperature variations are extreme, and its ecosystem is dominated by predatory life forms. Saren nodded. All true, yet the planet supports an indigenous sentient species that has developed spacefaring technology. How can a world so hostile produce such a civilization? Our understanding is incomplete. The hologram shifted to show humans engaging in various activities, building structures, exploring their world, creating art. Saren continued, I propose a comprehensive research expedition to Sol 3. My team will conduct the first proper scientific evaluation of this alleged death world and its inhabitants. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Counselor Joel beat his tentacle against the sound amplifier. Silence. Dr. Vex, what you propose is unprecedented. No researcher has ever willingly visited a Class 5 world. Which is precisely why our data is flawed. Saren countered. How can we claim to be scientists if we allow fear to limit our inquiry? It's not merely fear, Counselor Elo said, their gaseous form swirling in agitation within their containment field. It's a rational assessment of risk. The gravitational stress alone could cause catastrophic physical failure. Not to mention the biological threats. Their world teems with microscopic organisms that could devastate our immune systems. Saren activated another display showing schematics for specialized environmental suits. My team has developed protective technology specifically for this mission. We've studied Earth's conditions extensively and prepared accordingly. And who exactly comprises this team willing to risk extinction? Mrath asked skeptically. 6 specialists from diverse evolutionary backgrounds, all experts in their fields, Saren replied. Dr. Krill, xenobiologist specializing in hostile environments. Engineer Pax, environmental systems designer. Dr. Lumen, cultural anthropologist. Security specialist Foreign. Medical officer Taya. And myself as mission lead. The debate continued for hours. Opponents cited the Academy's sacred duty to preserve knowledge that would be lost if Saren's team perished. Supporters, though fewer, argued that true science required bold exploration of the unknown. 3 days later, Saren stood on the observation deck of the research vessel Inquiry, watching as her homeworld diminished to a glittering point of light. The Council had approved her mission, though by the narrowest margin in Academy history. Their reluctance was reflected in the mission parameters, a strict 30-day limit, constant monitoring, and absolute prohibition against contacting the indigenous species. Her 6-limbed reflection stared back at her from the transparent aluminum viewport. Had she made a terrible mistake? Was she leading her colleagues to their deaths? Having doubts, lead researcher. The deep, rumbling voice of security specialist Vorn interrupted her thoughts. The massive Brontari stood behind her, his armored exoskeleton gleaming under the ship's lights. As a species evolved on a high-gravity world with a caustic atmosphere, Vorn was theoretically best adapted for Earth conditions among their team. Not doubts. Healthy concern, Saren replied. The Council wasn't wrong about the dangers. Vorn made a sound that his translator rendered as a laugh. If they were right about everything, we wouldn't need to go. The journey to Earth took 17 days. They spent the time reviewing Earth data, testing their environmental suits, and practicing emergency protocols. Their ship, specially designed for the mission, was equipped with the most advanced stealth and shield technology the Academy could provide. As they entered the Sol system, the team gathered in the command center. Earth grew larger on their view screens, a blue-white sphere marbled with swirling cloud patterns. Preliminary scans confirm atmospheric composition matching our database, reported Engineer Pax, her delicate fingers dancing across the control panel. Nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor, and countless trace compounds. Surface temperature gradient is extreme, added Dr. Krill, adjusting his optical enhancers. From -40 to +50 degrees on their Celsius scale. How can a single species adapt to such variation? Dr. Lumen, the cultural anthropologist, gestured to the view screen. Not just adapt, thrive. Look at the artificial light patterns on the night side. Their population centers span every habitable region. Medical Officer Taya, your assessment? Saren asked. The ship's doctor, her translucent skin revealing the complex circulatory system beneath, consulted her data tablet. The indigenous physiology is fascinating. They're carbon-based, water-dependent, and remarkably durable. Their cellular structure allows for significant tissue regeneration. They can recover from injuries that would be fatal to most species. What about pathogens? Vorn inquired. Countless microorganisms, as expected on a Class 5 world, Taya replied. Our suits include triple-layer filtration and decontamination protocols, but their own immune systems are impressive. They coexist with their microbial ecology, rather than existing in sterile environments as we do. Saren studied the planet with a mixture of scientific curiosity and apprehension. We'll establish our research base in this remote region. She indicated a forested area far from major population centers. Our mission is observation only. We deploy tomorrow. The landing craft detached from the main research vessel, descending through Earth's turbulent atmosphere. Warning indicators flashed as they encountered weather patterns that would have been considered catastrophic emergencies on their worlds. Atmospheric turbulence exceeding safety parameters, Pax reported, her voice calm despite the ship's violent shaking. Gravitational compensation systems at 87% efficiency, Krill added as the craft broke through a thick cloud layer. The forest clearing they'd selected appeared below them, surrounded by tall vegetation. As they touched down, the team fell silent, watching the external sensors. Wind moved the trees. Sunlight filtered through the canopy. In the distance, native creatures called to one another. Deploying security perimeter, Vorn announced, activating the defensive systems. Environmental readings stable, Pax confirmed. Cloaking field engage. Saren took a deep breath inside her protective suit. Initiate research protocol Alpha. We are now officially the first scientific expedition to a Class 5 Deathworld. The team exited the craft one by one, feeling Earth's gravity pull at their bodies despite their compensator fields. The air, even filtered through their suits, smelled rich and complex. Saren activated her data recorder, her scientific mind already cataloging observations. The vegetation density is remarkable, Krill noted, scanning a nearby tree. And look at the cellular structure. These plants contain compounds that would be lethal neurotoxins to us, yet the native fauna consumes them. Lumen pointed to a small creature scurrying up a tree trunk. That's what humans call a squirrel. Harmless herbivore, though those teeth could easily pierce our epidermis. Vorn's threat detection system suddenly pinged. Movement 2 kilometers south. Large heat signature, consistent with human profiles. Maintain stealth protocols, Saren ordered. Deploy observation drones. Small, silent drones launched from their craft, quickly disappearing among the trees. Within minutes, they were transmitting images back to the team. A human male moved through the forest, carrying equipment on his back that would have crushed most of their species. He touched plants that their database marked as skin irritants without any protection. He drank from a stream their sensors indicated contained numerous microorganisms. Is he some kind of specialized survival expert? Taya wondered. Lumen checked the cultural database. No, their information networks identify this as hiking or backpacking, recreational activity. The team exchanged glances through their transparent helmets. What the humans considered recreation would qualify as extreme survival challenges on their worlds. For 3 days, they observed from a distance, collecting data on the local ecosystem and the occasional humans who passed through. They witnessed humans casually navigating terrain that required the aliens' most advanced equipment to traverse safely. They saw them endure temperature changes that would have killed most galactic species. They watched them handle plants and animals that contained enough toxins to depopulate a small colony. On the 4th day, their weather sensors detected a major atmospheric disturbance approaching. Storm system forming. Pax reported urgently. Wind speeds exceeding safety parameters. Electrical discharge imminent. Secure all equipment, Saren ordered. Full shelter protocol. From the safety of their reinforced base, they watched in scientific awe as water poured from the sky, wind bent massive trees, and lightning split the air with devastating energy. No civilized world would permit such dangerous weather patterns. How do they survive this? Krill wondered aloud, his eyes fixed on the monitor showing the storm's intensity. They build for it, Lumen replied. Their structures are designed to withstand these conditions. They've adapted their entire civilization around environmental extremes we consider apocalyptic. Siran watched the rain lashing against their viewport, her mind racing with implications. If humans had evolved to consider this normal, what did that mean for their psychology, their technology, their potential role in the galaxy? I believe, she said slowly, we may need to reconsider our understanding of the term Deathworld. Field research and first contact. The alien research team expanded their exploration range as they grew more confident in their protective systems. Using their cloaked atmospheric shuttle, they visited various Earth ecosystems, deserts where daytime temperatures would melt the skin of most galactic species, mountain peaks with air too thin to support respiration, oceanic regions teeming with predators that would be classified as planetary threats elsewhere. The adaptability is the key, Dr. Krill observed as they hovered invisibly above a human city. Look at this urban center. It experiences freezing conditions for months, then sweltering heat. The humans simply change their external coverings and continue functioning. Siran nodded, recording his observation. And not just physical adaptation. Their social structures accommodate these extremes. They've built systems to distribute resources across their environmental zones. Security specialist Vorn, who had initially been the most cautious, now watched the humans with something approaching respect. Their young train in survival skills as recreation, he noted, indicating a group of children playing in what humans called a park, climbing structures, and engaging in physical contests that would be considered military training on many worlds. Their medical technology is particularly interesting, Medical Officer Taya added. Rather than preventing all harm, they've developed systems to repair damage after it occurs. When injured, they continue functioning until they can receive treatment. Their information technology reflects this adaptability as well, Engineer Pax said. Redundant systems, distributed networks, constant backups. They expect failure and plan for it. Dr. Lumen, who had been studying human cultural transmissions, looked troubled. Their entertainment is revealing. They create simulations of disasters, predator attacks, and conflicts. They find pleasure in experiencing danger virtually. A psychological adaptation to living in a hostile environment, Saren suggested. They process fear through controlled exposure. Their research was proceeding beyond expectations when disaster struck. Their sensors detected a massive ground movement, what humans called an earthquake, centered near a coastal population center. Tectonic displacement registering at magnitude 8.3, Pax reported, her voice tight with concern. Human structures are collapsing. Ocean displacement detected, tsunami forming. The team watched in horror as the ocean retreated, then surged back toward the shore in a massive wave. Their monitors showed humans evacuating, emergency services mobilizing. They have protocols for this, Lumen observed. They anticipated this possibility. Not sufficiently, Vorn replied grimly, indicating a section of coastline where the wave had overcome evacuation routes. Heat signatures trapped in collapsed structures. Many will die. Saren faced an ethical dilemma. Their mission parameters strictly forbade intervention or contact. But they possessed technology that could save lives. We should help, Taya said, voicing what several were thinking. The Council prohibited contact, Krill reminded them. The Council isn't here, Vorn countered, surprising everyone. I was assigned to protect this team. I see no distinction between protecting us and protecting those who could become our allies. After a brief but intense debate, Saren made her decision. We'll assist discreetly. Minimal technology exposure. Focus on search and rescue where human efforts cannot reach. They deployed to an isolated section of coastline where their sensors detected survivors trapped under collapsed buildings. Using their shuttles, tractor beams, and cutting tools, they carefully extracted victims and moved them to areas where human rescuers could find them. Their plan worked initially. They remained cloaked, their technology subtle enough to be dismissed as fortunate structural shifts. But during their third extraction, they encountered an unexpected problem. A human emergency worker had entered the building as they were lifting a support beam. The human female stared directly at the wavering outline of their semi-cloaked forms, her mouth open in shock. The translation software captured her words. "What the hell are you?" Saren made a split-second decision. She deactivated her cloaking field, revealing her true form in the environmental suit. "We are researchers," her translator conveyed. "We mean no harm. We are helping." The human's vital signs spiked, increased heart rate, adrenaline surge. But she didn't flee. Instead, she pointed to the child they were freeing from the rubble. "Get her out first, then we'll talk." Working together, they rescued the child and several more survivors. The human, who identified herself as Emergency Coordinator Maya Chen, maintained remarkable composure despite the unprecedented first contact situation. "You picked a hell of a time to introduce yourselves," she said when they finally had a moment to talk, sheltered in the remains of a coastal building. "We were not supposed to reveal ourselves at all," Saren admitted. "Our mission was observation only." Maya looked at the alien team, then at the rescue efforts continuing around them. "But you couldn't just watch people die when you could help. That's surprisingly human of you." "Our ethical frameworks are perhaps not so different," Saren replied. "So you've been studying us. Is that why you're here?" Maya asked. Krill stepped forward. "Your world is classified in our records as extremely dangerous, what we call a Deathworld. We came to verify this classification." Maya laughed, a sound their translators struggled to interpret given the context. "A Deathworld. I guess that makes sense from your perspective. You are not surprised by this designation?" Lumen asked. "Look around." Maya gestured at the devastation. Earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, volcanoes, not to mention diseases, predators, and our own tendency to create new dangers. Earth tries to kill us pretty regularly. We just refuse to die. This simple statement crystallized something for Saren. The classification wasn't wrong. Earth was indeed a death world by any objective measure. What they had misunderstood was the relationship between the planet and its dominant species. Word of the aliens' presence spread quickly. Despite efforts by Maya and her colleagues to limit information, within hours the area was secured by military forces. The research team found themselves facing human authorities, trying to explain their mission to increasingly higher levels of government. To their surprise, after the initial shock, the humans responded with remarkable adaptability. Rather than panic or aggression, they organized, established protocols, and began formal diplomatic discussions, all while continuing disaster recovery efforts. Director Elizabeth Reyes of the hastily formed First Contact Division met with the alien team in a secured facility. "I understand you've been observing us for some time," she said without preamble. "What have you learned?" Saren chose her words carefully. "That we have significantly underestimated your species." "How so?" the director asked. "You have not merely survived on a world that should be uninhabitable by sentient standards. You have embraced its challenges. Where most species would construct environments to eliminate threats, you have adapted yourselves to thrive amid them." Director Reyes nodded. "Necessity drives innovation. We couldn't control Earth, so we learned to roll with its punches." The human idiom didn't translate well, but the sentiment was clear. As discussions continued, the aliens shared selective information about galactic society, while the humans provided insights into their history and development. Medical Officer Taya was permitted to visit a human hospital, where she observed treatments that would be considered barbaric in galactic medicine, cutting into bodies to repair damage, using radiation to fight cellular abnormalities, transplanting organs between individuals. Yet the results were undeniable. "They accept levels of intervention we would consider unconscionable," she reported to Saren. "But their recovery rates are remarkable. They don't just survive, they return to full functionality." Engineer Pax, after studying human infrastructure, was similarly impressed. Their power grid experiences regular failures, yet they've built in redundancies and quick repair systems. Their buildings collapse in disasters, so they've developed rapid construction techniques. They expect and plan for catastrophe in ways we never considered necessary. Security Specialist Forn, who had been granted access to observe military training, returned with perhaps the most troubling assessment. Their warriors train for all environments: underwater, extreme heat, freezing cold, oxygen deprivation. They have specialized units that can function in conditions that would incapacitate most species, and their approach to combat. "What about it?" Saren asked. "They don't fight to eliminate threats efficiently," Vorn explained. "They fight to endure, to outlast. Their tactical doctrine emphasizes perseverance over power. It's unsettling." As their unauthorized first contact extended into days, then weeks, the research team continued gathering data, now with human cooperation. They witnessed humans returning to devastated areas, rebuilding structures in places their risk assessment protocols would have permanently condemned. "Why rebuild here?" Saren asked a construction supervisor at the tsunami site. "This location has a high probability of future seismic events." The human shrugged. A gesture they'd learned indicated acceptance. "Everywhere has something. Hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, blizzards. You pick your disaster and learn to live with it." This resilience extended beyond physical challenges. Humans routinely faced social upheavals, economic collapses, and technological disruptions that would have resulted in societal breakdown elsewhere in the galaxy. Yet they adapted, recovered, and continued. "I believe," Saren told her team as they prepared their report for the Council, "that we have been measuring the wrong variable. We classified Earth based on its dangers. We should have been classifying humanity based on its response to those dangers." The reclassification debate, the grand chamber of the Galactic Academy of Sciences, had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major species had gathered to hear Dr. Saren Vex's presentation on the Earth expedition. The council members sat in stone-faced silence as she concluded her formal report. "Therefore," Saren said, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words, I propose Earth be reclassified. While the planet itself remains a Class 5 Deathworld by objective measures, its indigenous sentient species, humans, represents an entirely new category in our understanding of sapient life. Counselor Joel raised a tentacle. You realize what you're suggesting violates centuries of established xenobiological doctrine. Intelligence evolves in response to environmental pressures, yes, but the correlation between environmental safety and advanced civilization has been consistently demonstrated across thousands of worlds. Until now, Saren countered, humans represent a statistical anomaly that forces us to reconsider our assumptions. Security Specialist Vorn stepped forward, his massive form commanding attention. I was initially assigned to this mission to protect the team from Earth's dangers. I now believe our greatest oversight was failing to recognize that humans themselves represent a form of environmental adaptation. He activated a holographic display showing humans in various extreme conditions, climbing ice-covered mountains, diving in predator-filled oceans, working in scorching deserts. These activities, Vorn continued, are what humans call sports and hobbies, recreational pursuits, what we would classify as survival challenges requiring specialized training and equipment they undertake for pleasure. Murmurs spread through the chamber as the implications became clear. Medical Officer Taya presented next, displaying human medical data. Their cellular regeneration capabilities exceed anything in our records. They routinely survive injuries that would be fatal to most species. Their immune systems engage with pathogens rather than requiring sterile environments. And perhaps most remarkably, they sleep. Sleep. Counselor Mrath interrupted. All species require rest cycles. Not like this, Taya explained. Humans enter a state of unconsciousness for approximately 1/3 of their day, every day. They deliberately render themselves vulnerable in a hostile environment as a biological necessity. The chamber erupted in astonished discussions. The concept seemed absurd. No species could survive on a death world while spending 1/3 of its time unconscious. Engineer Pax presented technological analyses. Human engineering emphasizes redundancy, repairability, and adaptation rather than perfect reliability. They expect their technology to fail and plan accordingly. This approach has resulted in remarkable innovation rates. They solve problems by iterative failure rather than theoretical perfection. Dr. Luhmann's cultural assessment proved equally provocative. Humans process trauma through narrative. They convert disasters and conflicts into stories, allowing psychological adaptation to persistent threats. Their literature, art, and entertainment frequently simulate danger, death, and catastrophe. Dr. Krill concluded with the evolutionary implications. Humans are pursuit predators who evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This trait pervades their psychology. They outlast challenges rather than overcoming them with superior capability. When faced with an insurmountable obstacle, they will try repeatedly, adapting their approach until they succeed or die trying. Counselor Elo's gaseous form swirled agitatedly. And you made unauthorized first contact with these persistence predators. Do you understand the potential consequences? If they are as adaptable and resilient as you claim, they could represent an existential threat to galactic stability. Saren had anticipated this reaction. I would like to introduce Director Elizabeth Rice of Earth's First Contact Division, who has been permitted to address the Council via secure transmission. The human woman appeared on the central display, her expression composed despite addressing an assembly of alien species. Distinguished Council, she began, I understand your concerns. Humans have a long history of conflict and competition, but those same traits that helped us survive Earth have taught us important lessons. We've learned that cooperation often succeeds where confrontation fails. We've developed ethical frameworks that channel our persistence toward mutual benefit. Pretty words, Counselor Mrath said dismissively, but your species' history suggests otherwise. Director Rice nodded. Our history is filled with violence, yes. We've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times, but we've survived those self-inflicted wounds too. Each time, We've emerged with stronger prohibitions against repeating our mistakes. The debate continued for days. Some council members advocated for quarantine protocols, arguing that humanity represented too great a risk. Others saw potential benefits in controlled cultural exchange, suggesting that human adaptability could solve problems that had stumped the galactic community for generations. The final decision came down to a fundamental philosophical question. Did the galactic community judge species by their origins or their potential? Siren made her closing argument with the passion of a scientist who had seen her understanding of the universe transformed. We classified Earth as a death world because it met objective criteria for extreme danger. By that same objective standard, we must recognize that humans have achieved something our models deemed impossible. They have thrived in conditions that should preclude advanced civilization. She displayed final images from Earth, humans rebuilding after the tsunami, children playing in parks, artists creating beauty, scientists exploring their world. Yes, they evolved as persistence predators. Yes, they can endure conditions that would kill most of us. Yes, their history includes violence and conflict. But they have also developed art, philosophy, ethics, and a drive to understand their universe that mirrors our own. They don't just survive, they question, create, and aspire. After much deliberation, the Council reached its decision. Earth would maintain its Class 5 Deathworld status, but with a critical modification. Humans would be classified as an adaptive sentinel species, recognized for their unique evolutionary path and potential contribution to galactic knowledge. The decision included strict protocols for cultural exchange, technological sharing, and diplomatic relations. Humanity would be introduced to the galactic community gradually, with careful monitoring of their integration. As the formal session concluded, Councillor Joel approached Siren privately. "You've changed everything, you know," the elder academic said quietly. "For better or worse, the galaxy will never be the same." "Isn't that the purpose of science?" Siren replied. "To challenge our understanding and expand our knowledge." "Indeed." The councillor's eye stalks tilted thoughtfully. "I've opposed your methods, but I cannot dispute your results. These humans, do you believe they're ready for what awaits them beyond their world?" Siren considered the question carefully, remembering Maya Chen's calm competence amidst disaster, Director Rice's diplomatic skill, and countless other humans she'd observed facing challenges that would have broken most species. "No," she answered honestly. "But neither is the galaxy ready for them. That's what makes it interesting." 6 months later, the first official human delegation arrived at the Galactic Central Hub. As the Earth representatives stepped from their ship, moving with careful precision in the alien environment, their eyes wide with wonder yet their postures showing determination, Siren watched from the reception area. These persistence predators from a death world had survived everything their planet had thrown at them. Now they faced a new challenge, finding their place among the stars. Whatever happened next, Siren was certain of one thing: they would adapt. It was what humans did best.